The room was quiet except for the sound of the city outside. I could feel him next to me, warm and solid, the subtle weight of his body pressed against mine. Not touching in any overt way, not needing to, but close enough that every inch of me was alert, attuned to him. He had said it before, no strings. That it was casual, temporary, something that wouldn't last. But here he was, again in my apartment, in my bed, our shoulders brushing, our breaths mingling in the small space between us. No strings, he'd said, and yet I could feel the gravity of his presence pulling at me relentless. I closed my eyes, trying to ignore it, but it was impossible. Every little movement, the way his arm shifted, the faint brush of his hand against mine, the soft rhythm of his breathing, it all wrapped around me, tugged at something I hadn't wanted to admit I had. "You awake?" he murmured, voice low and teasing, and I felt a shiver race down my spine. I let out a small laugh, just enough to hide the way my heart had skipped. "Yeah, just thinking." He turned slightly to face me, head propped on his arm. His eyes glimmered in the dim light, a mixture of mischief and something softer, something more dangerous. Thinking about what? I couldn't answer. Not because I didn't want to, but because I knew that any words would betray me. That if I spoke, I'd reveal the truth, that the pull between us, the tension that had been building for months, wasn't casual. It wasn't fleeting. And it certainly wasn't something I could control. Instead, I let my gaze linger on him, taking in the lines of his jaw, the tilt of his shoulder, the way his fingers flexed lazily against the sheet. My chest ached, tight with longing I wasn't ready to admit, my hands twitching with the need to reach out, to bridge the distance, to feel him even closer. "You're thinking about me," he said softly, almost as if reading my mind. His hand reached out slowly, brushing my arm in the gentlest way possible. "I can feel it." I swallowed hard. He was right. Every nerve in my body was tuned to him, every heartbeat echoing with a desire I had tried to push aside. "Maybe," I whispered, voice barely audible. "Maybe." His grin was teasing, infuriating, irresistible. "Come on. You know it's not maybe." I tried to look away, to focus on the faint glow of the city lights outside the window, but it was useless. My eyes kept returning to his, and I could feel him noticing, leaning in slightly, just close enough that the space between us felt electric. "Relax," he murmured, voice low, soft, dangerous. "No need to overthink this." But I was already overthinking it. Every small brush of his hand, every shift of his body, every teasing glance sent a jolt through me. And yet, I couldn't stop wanting it. Couldn't stop wanting him. He shifted closer, and I felt it, the undeniable pull, the warmth radiating from him, the way the gravity of his presence wrapped around me. Not words, not promises, not declarations. Just him, close, impossibly close, and the tension thick in the air like a living thing. "See," he whispered after a moment, leaning back just enough to smile at me. No strings. And somehow, despite everything, I knew it didn't matter. Because he'd always come back. "Boys." And I found myself holding my breath, waiting for it, waiting for him, knowing full well that the rule we'd made didn't stand a chance against the pull between us. I closed my eyes again, letting the warmth of his body seep into me, letting the closeness wrap around my chest, my shoulders, my mind. There was no rush, no urgency, just us, tangled in the quiet intimacy of the moment. The way he kept coming back. The way I couldn't resist. And maybe that was enough. For now. I thought I could resist him. I really did. But he had a way of appearing just when I convinced myself I was done thinking about him. That grin. That gaze. The faint curl of his lip when he caught me staring. It was impossible not to notice. Impossible not to feel. He showed up at my door one Thursday evening, like he knew I would be there, like he could read my thoughts before I even formed them. I tried to hide my relief, my anticipation, but it failed. Completely. "Hey," he said, that lazy smirk tugging at the corner of his lips. Mind if I come in? I opened my mouth to protest, to remind him of the no-strings agreement, but the words felt ridiculous. What strings? I was already tangled in him. I let him step in, close the distance, and I didn't even try to stop the way my chest tightened when his presence swallowed the room. "You're persistent," I murmured, not quite meeting his eyes. He laughed softly, leaning against the doorframe, letting his gaze roam over me. "You're just predictable," he replied, that voice low, teasing, yet dangerous in its softness. "I knew you'd let me in eventually." And I had. I let him in every time. Every time he showed up with that familiar look, that pull that made it impossible to think clearly. It wasn't just desire. It was something deeper, something I wasn't ready to name. We moved to the couch. Like always, the quiet intimacy between us electric. Not a word about labels. Not a word about the rules. Just the way his arm brushed mine, the way our knees pressed together, the faint, teasing closeness that made my chest ache. "You know," he said, leaning closer, eyes glinting in the dim light, "I could stay like this forever." "Like this?" I asked, my voice unsteady. "Close," he whispered. "Right here. No strings. Just this." And somehow, despite the supposed simplicity of it, my stomach twisted. My heart raced. No strings. And yet, he had already tied me up in his orbit, bound me in ways I couldn't control. He leaned back just enough to watch me, that mischievous smirk never leaving his face. "You're thinking too much again," he murmured. "Stop overthinking. Just feel it." I tried. I really did. But every glance, every brush of his hand, every subtle shift of his body against mine made me dizzy. I was caught in a loop I couldn't break. Wanting him, afraid of wanting him, letting him in, and then chasing the pull the moment he left. "You come back too often," I said quietly, though the words sounded hollow even to me. "Too often?" he echoed, voice teasing, but there was a softness behind it. A vulnerability I hadn't expected. "I could say the same about you. You think I don't notice when you're counting the hours until I appear again?" I froze. He knew. Of course he knew. He always knew. And the thought made my chest ache with longing, ache with the thrill of being seen in ways no one else ever had. He leaned closer, just enough that the warmth radiating off him brushed my arm. My breath hitched. His hand hovered near mine, teasingly close. "You want me here," he whispered. "Don't lie." I couldn't. Not with his gaze pinned to mine. Not with his presence pressing into my senses like a storm I didn't want to resist. "I do," I admitted finally, voice trembling. "But I don't know why." "Why?" he repeated softly, brushing a thumb across the back of my hand. "Because it feels right? Because you feel it too." I wanted to argue, to deny it, but the truth was undeniable. Every fiber of me was drawn to him. Pulled into the orbit of a man who promised no strings but kept coming back. Over and over. He smiled, leaning back just enough to tease me, but not enough to release the tension that had built between us. "See? No strings," he said lightly, almost laughing. And yet, here I am. I laughed softly too, a breathless, shaky sound. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying and thrilling at the same time. No strings didn't mean nothing. No strings didn't mean I could escape him. No strings didn't mean I was free from wanting him in every possible way. And the worst, or maybe the best, part? He knew it. Every time he returned, every time he leaned close, every time he teased and touched in the smallest ways, I fell again. And I knew I would fall again. Because he had me. And no strings couldn't undo that. The room felt smaller now, charged with the weight of everything that had passed between us. Every glance, every brush of a hand, every teasing smile lingered in the air like a storm waiting to break. And I knew it. I could feel it in the tremor of my hands, the quickening of my pulse, the heat rising along my neck. He leaned back slightly on the couch, arm draped casually along the back, but his gaze never left me. That smirk tugged at the corner of his lips, Teasing, infuriating, irresistible. And I hated that I couldn't look away. "You know," he said softly, voice low but sharp enough to catch my attention, "I could do this forever." "Do what?" I asked, trying to mask the tremble in my voice, though I knew it was hopeless. "This," he said, sweeping his hand to indicate the space between us, the closeness, the tension. "This, whatever this is. No strings, remember? But somehow I keep coming back." I swallowed hard, feeling the truth of it sink into me. He did. He kept coming back. And I kept letting him. Every time the same pull. Every time, my chest tightened, my stomach twisted, my mind spinning with desire I didn't know how to name. "I don't know why I let you," I whispered, though even as I said it, I knew I wasn't trying to push him away. "I shouldn't." He leaned closer, slow, deliberate, and I felt my breath hitch. Not touching, not yet, but close enough that the heat from him brushed along my arm, traveled across my chest, ignited something deep inside me. "You don't have to," he said softly. "You like it. You can't fight it. Admit it." I wanted to argue, to protest, to remind him that we agreed on rules, on no strings, on nothing. But my mind had been silent since the moment he first walked in tonight. All I could do was stare at him, pulse racing, heart thundering, and feel the undeniable truth of it. I wanted him. I wanted him here. I wanted him always, even if he said no strings. His eyes softened, that dangerous gleam in them replaced with something almost tender, almost vulnerable. "I know you feel it," he murmured, voice low, teasing, and I could feel it in my bones. The pull. The tension. The everything. I wanted to reach out, to close the space, to let him know how much I craved this, craved him, even if the words failed me. And he must have known, because slowly, deliberately, he leaned back just enough to give me space, then smiled. "You see? No strings, and yet here we are. Again." The irony of it struck me so sharply I laughed softly, breathless, and felt my chest ache. No strings. And yet, every time I fell again. And he knew it. He thrived on it and I let him. He shifted closer, brushing his shoulder against mine. The smallest contact, but it felt like an electric charge. "Stop hiding," he whispered. "Stop pretending you're not thinking about me. Stop pretending you don't want me here, right now, as much as I want you." I couldn't. I couldn't stop wanting him. Every inch of me was aware of him, attuned to his presence, wrapped in a tension I couldn't name. The heat, the closeness, the way he made me feel like every nerve in my body was alive. It was maddening and intoxicating all at once. "You're impossible," I breathed, voice trembling, and for once, I didn't try to hide how much. "And you," he countered softly, eyes locking onto mine. "Are you impossible too?" I could only shake my head, breath catching, chest tight. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to scream. I wanted to pull him close and close the distance forever. But words failed me. Actions were what mattered now, and I let him feel the answer in the silence, in the way I leaned ever so slightly toward him, the way my pulse hammered at the proximity. He grinned, slow, satisfied, as if he had won something without a single fight. "You see," he murmured. "No strings, and yet you can't resist me." I didn't resist. Not now. Not ever, it seemed. Every push and pull, every teasing smile, every little step he took closer, I surrendered to it. I surrendered to him. And in that quiet intimacy, the kind that didn't need labels or rules, I realized something terrifying and exhilarating. No strings didn't mean nothing. It didn't mean I wasn't wrapped up in him, didn't mean he wasn't wrapped up in me. No strings was just a lie we told ourselves. Because here we were, caught in the pull, caught in the tension, caught in the undeniable gravity of each other. And somehow it was enough. He leaned back slightly, letting me breathe, but the space between us still buzzed with everything unsaid, everything felt, everything waiting to happen again tomorrow, the day after, the next time he came back. "No strings," he said lightly, almost laughing, voice warm, teasing. But somehow, I keep coming back. I smiled softly, leaning back against him just a little, feeling the heat, the closeness, the undeniable connection. And I knew, without a doubt, that I didn't want him to stop coming back. Because no strings didn't matter anymore. Not when everything between us had already tied us together in ways we couldn't escape, no matter how hard we tried. And I didn't want to.